Welcome to the Reel to Reel podcast, where the stories behind the board go on record. I'm your host, Bruce Hensal. We're here to give you an insider's look at the music industry. This will be a reunion show with some of our first season's guests. I'm joined by my co-host, Jim Meyer from the Melrose Center, from Akron, Ohio, Deborah Smith Cahan and Christopher Butler, and from Orlando, Florida, Beth McKee and Davey Schweizer. Hey, everybody.
Hey. Hi, Bruce.
Hey, Bruce.
And hi, Debbie.
Hello.
Deborah.
Well, I want
Baby
to
cakes.
I want to get started by, I think I'll start with Deborah, since she's the only one here besides myself that's not active in the music industry currently, and ask her how the last year has been with this crazy thing we've been dealing with.
It's been that crazy thing we've been dealing with. I've been busy staying alive. I've done a great job of that, I must say. Musically, I've been getting my chops back on my upright bass, and that's a work in progress. Non-musically, I'm now into light masonry skills, perfecting those. And all in all, the beat goes on, as we say.
Great. Well, Chris, how about you? I've noticed you've dropped a couple recent offerings. And
I took to quote lockdown with a vengeance. It kind of fits my personality of a hermit guy who loves nothing better than to hole up with all my toys, as I see Beth is surrounded by her toys. And no real big news, but continue to try and write and record. I have a studio space in downtown Akron, and I'm helping with a few other friends on some other projects. If I use the word producer, that's too grand. It's more like annoying kibitzer in the background. I could use a little more bass maybe, but it's up to you guys. It's whatever, that kind of approach. So
right, how many producers does it take to change a light bulb?
That's right. But
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Right. Keep it on. Learning some new skills, trying to get a hold of, get beyond just the real basic knowledge of Pro Tools. And I have a real good friend, local engineer, who is holding my hand in that endeavor. And, all good. As Deborah said, staying alive. So
who'd have thought that the Bee Gees would be the anthem for
I know
2020?
Which you have a relationship with them, right?
Well, I'm acquaintances. Actually, I have more of a relationship with the musicians in their band, Blue Weaver and Dennis Byron and Alan Kendall.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's old. behind the glass, behind the board anecdote. That's great.
For sure. Well, Beth, how about you? I noticed you had a concert not too long ago.
I did have a little foray outside of my little haven here with the band, the Plaza Theater. That was an outdoor, socially distanced event. And kind of just a one-off for us, but it was well done, and we enjoyed it.
Very good. You got any future concerts on the books, or?
Well, things are trickling in, and I'm starting to think about booking stuff. I finally will be considered fully vaccinated in another week. So I've been like Chris. I've kind of embraced the stay at home concept and have been right here in this little room quite a bit. But I do have a show coming up in North Carolina this summer that I just booked yesterday, and it's going to start moving around a little bit maybe.
Great.
Beth, do I detect a little twang? Are you from Carolina and all that? Or I don't think you're a Florida native, but that's a reach.
No, you're absolutely right. I actually am from Mississippi, but my ancestors are from North Carolina, and I've noticed that a lot of North Carolina accents sound to me like Mississippi accents. So there's probably a hillbilly in there somewhere.
Well, David, how about you? What you been up to?
Oh man. Well, I've actually been fortunate enough to kind of keep. I have a weekly gig out at the House of Blues in downtown, or it's called Disney Springs now, which is an outdoor venue. So I've been able to keep the band pretty busy out there. We dropped out for probably 2 to 3 months, but then we're able to come back and start playing again. So the band stayed busy out there. The bigger band is doing an event this weekend at the Apopka Amphitheater, which is a beautiful space. I mean, the venue is just beautiful, big outdoor venue. So we're doing that, and we've got some things coming up in June at in Altamont at the Crane's Roost, another big outdoor venue. So I've been pretty fortunate to keep some gigs going and keep the band busy, doing some outdoor venue work. And then on top of that, haven't been in the studio a ton since COVID hit. I have done quite a bit of work with my kids. They have a band called Sigh Girl, S-I-G-H Girl, and they're getting ready to release another single. And so they are excited, and that's been a lot of fun. I've got a couple little projects going on in the studio also, but I have been neck deep in real estate remodeling and all kinds of stuff. So I've just been going. So it's been an interesting year, that's for sure. So
yeah, I think that everybody could describe their year as that.
Yes, indeed. How about you, buddy?
Me, been doing this podcast. Jim's keeping me busy with this, and that's about it. I'm mixing a few records occasionally, and just yesterday I started to get involved in a to-be-announced project that at the moment's kind of super secret, but it includes members of Manassas and Bob Marley and the Wailers. Let's just put it that way.
Hey.
Nice. Sweet.
Yeah, when that's ready to be announced, I will definitely let that be announced.
You just can't whisper it to us?
I could whisper the band name, and then you'd have to go to Google.
We don't want to get you in trouble.
No, we don't want to get you in trouble. It's all right. Non-disclosure
exactly
is a powerful thing.
I'm suspecting the participation of a certain bassist.
I think you may be right about that. Actually, you've made the island connection right away, I see.
Manassas Island.
And
I can offer my masonry skills.
well, we always need that foundation, Deborah. So
Exactly.
That's right. Solid as a rock, our girl, Deborah.
Thank you.
You are
On the one.
On the
always.
one. Well, look at that. Rockers for life. That's interesting.
Jim, you got any questions for any of our guests?
Well, I was wondering, for those of you who are writing new music right now and thinking about releasing it, it seems to all of us probably that physical media has been fading in significance for years, probably with the exception of vinyl and its reemergence to a group of people who are really interested in collecting vinyl and listening to music that way. But I was wondering if you all felt that the pandemic has maybe accelerated that. Are we speeding up towards just doing things streaming? And if that's something that you've thought about as you've been writing over the last year.
Well, I'll jump in and say that yes, probably, but maybe not. I think that and I know exactly what I still am holding out with the garage full of merchandise. CDs are going to make the same emotional comeback that vinyl and cassettes did for a hot minute. And vinyl is great, but it's so expensive to produce and bulky to ship and all that kind of stuff. So I still think that once we get out into some more shows that are where we're interacting with our friends and followers and fans or whatever, that we'll be able to move some of that physical merchandise.
If I can butt in, since I have no commercial potential, that isn't worrying me too much. I am thinking about maybe a vinyl EP strictly as a novelty project, and very self-indulgent because, as Beth says, it's expensive. Shipping is an issue. Every once in a while, CD Baby will ask for one CD, and then maybe a few weeks later they'll ask for one CD, and basically the shipping, even at media rate, eats up whatever profit I would make on the record. So certainly the world has permanently changed. If you take out, just on a personal, cranky, rebellious note, not worrying about anything other than making something and throwing it out there. There is that I can do whatever I want, and it can be as weird and experimental or exploratory as possible. I don't play live, except as maybe in the rhythm section. So I have no live audience to judge or cater to. It's all of that is freeing, but on one hand, I've completely given up on all that, other than just to have fun. Finally, on the other hand, yeah, it does gnaw at me that I maybe can't, reach a wider audience beyond my Facebook page. I'm conflicted about that, but not too much.
I hear you. We always said vinyl is final, but vinyl now isn't what vinyl was. And I remember, and Bruce, I think we've had a discussion about having to make the oral adjustment from vinyl to, from analog to digital. So I would have to say that digital vinyl strikes me really differently than analog vinyl did. And having said that, it's also interesting to me that which unites us divides us. So by necessity, we've all become much more connected through media, through Zoom, through all kinds of media that would connect us, and FaceTime and all of it, but also isolates us at the same time because we're all sitting alone, connecting to each other. So it's sort of an interesting situation we've gotten ourselves in. I just always hope that live music will exist, because I can't imagine not hearing that. Not hearing what the room has to offer the musicians and what the musicians have to offer the room. Much different. And heck, I don't know, how do you figure it out on Zoom when people are not in one spot? How do you figure out the delay? I don't know about that. So I'm just hoping that we can all get healthier and get back together in a sense and enjoy it live. Until then, here we are, sitting at home.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's good.
I want to throw in a couple just real quick. I do believe that through all of this, through the pandemic, it has accelerated the lack of physical content, because we just can't get it out there. So when you're forced to do something else, we have to adapt. So I think that certainly in the releasing songs, I had a project that did get released during the pandemic that was a full-length project, 14 songs. But that really is not the norm right now. It's more just releasing singles. And I think these young artists, I mentioned my kids, they're 17, 19, and 19. The band consists of 3 members. And I think they are really looking for, once things open back up, they're looking for different ways to have something physical to sell, merchandise, T-shirts, pictures. It's almost like they are, becoming involved in fashion and just this, other things, other art forms besides music. So they physically have something they can offer to their fans. So it's pretty interesting. And I think we're going to continue to see that with bands and artists and, merchandise and, but it will be interesting to see what happens when things open up again. And I think people love to walk away with the CD, and especially if there's a signature on it. So, we'll just have to see, but, that's my 2 cents.
Good point. This is back to Video Killed the Radio Star. Is I'm watching a local band here of quote kids called Detention, and they have maximized their exposure under this. They have a residency that is broadcast, so there's a fixed time and point where their fans can see them participate. They are doing, every song gets a video. They do concentrate fashion appearance because it's much more of a visual thing than an audio thing. Although they don't slack off that. The recordings are quality and all that. But you're right. There are other aspects of your presentation or your package that are getting more emphasis just by the nature of the way things are right now, and more attention to detail in other areas. So that's probably going to be permanent, I would think, unless there's some new medium coming down the pike that's a physical object. Vinyl doesn't help other than a novelty thing. I mean, there's a pressing plant in Cleveland that, and maybe your experience of looking into this is the same. But it's 3 to 4 months lag time. The pressing plants are so busy. That kind of takes the wind out of your sails in terms of I want to reach with this physical product. I have to wait. I finish the song. It's like, okay, I'm gonna. And the temptation to throw it out there on Facebook, and then it's quite done. It's done. It has its 200, 300, 400, listens and hits and nice comments from my peers, and that's it. There's no opportunity for, quotes again, monetizing it or physicalizing it. It has a real fast arc. What's that joke about stiff records? Sign them on Friday, record them on Saturday, press them on Sunday, release it on Monday, delete it on Tuesday. That's
right.
It's that kind of quick turnaround. lockdown has shortened the already short attention span or arc or cycle of a product, and I bet that's permanent,
Well, I think the immediacy that we live in, the immediacy, the instant gratification is not just a desire, it's our reality now. So it's going to be hard to keep them down on the farm after you can put it right out there and hear it.
But once the live venues open up, that may change, right?
Yep.
I
think so.
Deborah, in our neighborhood, there's still it looks like Julie's is going to stay in business, and Tiki Underground is going to stay in business, and
Right.
Empire and all that. They managed to hold on. I have a project called the Akron Music Awards, and I've helped with paying some of these clubs for last year their BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC performance fees, because these people should have declared a moratorium to help the businesses, but they have not. I think you can work out a deal with them, but they still insist on their live music licenses being paid. And my little organization wrote some checks to cover some of that, and hopefully that helped them stay alive. But maybe that'll change with as Deborah is saying, with the return to intimacy of seeing somebody live. That may change things.
Well, I think it's so admirable what you have done with the Akron Music Awards, and the fact that you're paying the licensing fees for these venues. Not a lot of people are that generous in the business today, or that far looking. So kudos to you, Mr. Butler.
I wonder if it's a stretch to say this, but maybe what you guys are describing is this increased appreciation for the connection that you get with being at a live venue, and you're like Deborah said, you're there to hear what the musicians are offering the room, and that feeling that you get, if that's becoming heightened because of what we've gone through and how we miss that, I wonder if it will sort of turn the tide a little bit toward people wanting to digest more music. Like we were talking earlier about, people don't really want to listen to a 12-song album so much anymore because it's immediate gratification and what's out there, and I'm going to give it 30 seconds or whatever. That's sort of become like our culture. But maybe this appreciation that might be growing for what we miss in live music might foster a little bit more appreciation for taking time and listening to an artist, whether that they find that artist's album on Spotify or whether they actually pick up something physical. But maybe there's something to be said for we're being starved of something, and once we get a little bit more of that back, it might open us up in another area to appreciate the recorded version of what that artist has to offer.
Can you and Beth elaborate more on the prospect for live places opening up in your area? I'd be interested to hearing. You have much more bigger population and more opportunities for playing than Deborah and I have here in Akron. Can you elaborate more and how you found it? I mean, are you able to think into long term in terms of touring and the possibility of that? Your thoughts, please.
Yes, I think that, first of all, Florida being Florida, never fully closed, it didn't seem, as much as maybe on some levels I would have liked for it to do. But I think that local venues here have been extremely creative. And so there's been some music and, with outdoor events and having outdoor spaces and having socially distanced seating. So there have been some gigs happening. I've just not chosen to. Something in my gut told me, if you get this, you're going to be really sick. So stay the hell home. And And I'm like you, I didn't need much more than that as an excuse. Like, oh, I have to stay home. Okay. But um,
Y'all have the advantage of weather as well. Deborah and I mean, ain't
yeah,
nothing happening here from November to March, outside anyway.
the past 6 months have been ideal for outdoor gigs here. It's just fixing to get really hot now. So I think that we'll see more of that. And I think people are going to continue to be more careful, I hope until we really are everybody's vaccinated and we have this more of a grip on it. The gig that I picked up in North Carolina, I have a couple of gigs in North Carolina this summer. Because again, Florida hot, no place for me in the summer. And I'm excited to see these venues kind of, experimenting with socially distanced shows. I don't know how they're doing it because seating is so greatly reduced. This is a theater, a beautiful old theater in Elkin, North Carolina that I'm looking forward to playing a show. And they're only selling 50 tickets.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
it's like,
How are they going to make it? How are they going to make it with 50
maybe they got a grant. I'm just hoping they're getting by on other money. I don't know, but and also, and this kind of brings it back around to the previous question about physical merch and that kind of stuff. And that is that this particular theater in Elkin, North Carolina, it's called the Reeves Theater, and I think they're a great example of this. They have cultivated the community around their venue. So there are quite a few people in that town and in surrounding areas, because it's not that far from Winston-Salem and some other larger cities, that care a lot about this venue and want to make sure that it survives. And I think that staying in touch and developing that community and communicating with that community is what helps these types of venues. And I think that's what musicians can do also, is you develop and foster the community of people that support or somewhat like your music. We don't have that, big, open door of throwing things out and having our heads stick above the crowd. But at my age, I've got a few friends that have been following my music for a couple of decades now. So you better believe I have their email address. And if I can foster my relationships with them and continue to stay in touch with them and let them know that I appreciate them, then it's kind of a two-way thing. They do the same. So I think that is one alternative that we have, which is just to kind of foster the community of folks that will support you.
As far as the gigs that I've been doing, I mentioned a lot of outdoor venues, and I am starting to see. I have done some indoor venues recently. The band has done a few over the past few months, and but I am starting to see it open up on a bigger scale to musicians and bands, as far as different venues starting to, there's still kind of, people are still, asked to wear a mask when you go in, but once you're seated, it seems like at that point you could take off a mask. But if you go to a restroom, I mean, our biggest issue that we had was that people wanted to dance. And so it was like, we'd start playing a song and I'm like, oh, okay, let's bring it back down, because people just wanted to dance. And then they would be dancing with masks, but it just seemed weird. It feels like it's getting better because people are getting vaccinated and the band is vaccinated. And so everybody is feeling safer. But as far as, outside of Florida, I'm not sure it's the same situation. It seems like you said, we have great weather here and lots of sunshine. And so I think it'll be interesting how everything else unfolds. But I am definitely seeing venues open up more. I have not seen or heard anything about. I play out at House of Blues, but just out in their front porch area. But I have not heard anything about the bigger venues opening up as of yet.
Well, I know the Hard Rock Live has had a few concerts, but not their normal schedule by any means.
Right, and I know that they've been very, very, maybe at 25 or 50% capacity.
Yeah, I believe 50.
Yeah, so
it's definitely changed the live concert world for sure. I have several friends who manage touring acts, and they've had a heck of a year. Most of their artists have done just exactly what we've been talking about. They wind up releasing things or doing concerts privately. But they've told me that they don't anticipate touring to ramp up anywhere near the pre-pandemic levels until 2022.
Right.
And this is like AEG and Live Nation and places like that.
I will say one other thing on this subject is that and Beth, you will see when you go up to North Carolina and play that show, people are dying for live music. They are so happy to hear a band perform and be a part of that and be that connection that only music can do. So, I think for a long time, we took so many things for granted, even just being able to spend time together. And so I think that's definitely happened with the music where every time we play now, it feels like there is more of a connection there in a live situation than we've ever really felt before, because people are just so hungry to be a part of that.
For real. It's more like church almost. It's like so into it and so focused, and I can see by social media comments that people really do miss the experience of live music. And I think the audience in general has a new appreciation for what role viewing live music has played in their lives and their sanity and their happiness and well-being. So at least we kind of maybe are gaining a notch in that department. And I'll tell you what, the biggest lesson or the biggest takeaway from this for me has been developing the capacity to decline a gig. Forever, I took every gig like, what, $10? Okay. Because I was so scared that if I didn't take a gig, no more gigs would ever come. And I have learned to decline, like, this is not really the ideal gig for me. And I have seen so many musicians, I don't know, at least temporarily, maybe kind of turn their back on music and give up. And that's heartbreaking to see people walk away. I think the world in general is going to lose a lot of good music because people have to survive. It's people with kids. I'm lucky that I'm, kind of settled and don't have a big overhead, so I can ride things out. But a lot of really talented musicians have had to look in other directions and have made, what appear to be long-term career diversions. So it's interesting. I think there's going to be a lot less music available than there was from the audience perspective. So probably, the appreciation for it, especially after being isolated for so long, will be increased too.
Yeah, I think that would be, it's being very optimistic, and I enjoy that point of view. It's just, there's been so much negativity that I want to see this kind of positivity grow exponentially. And I think this opening of the restrictions is helping here in Florida, but it's not nationwide. And as to Beth's comment about musicians leaving the business, I've actually known a few people who that has happened to, and I feel it's really a loss to the audience when those artists have to seek a living somewhere else. End of rant.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. But you know what's interesting is I think without exception, have all discussed, here we are musicians, live performing musicians, whether doing that recently or more primally, and we've all talked about the level of comfort we found having to be in isolation. You would think musicians would be some of the last people, performers would be some of the last people who would be comfortable with solitude. But I've always found for me that the creative process, even if it was in a collaborative sense of co-writing, was a very solitary process. So being shut down, it didn't bother me all that much, but I do miss the connectivity of it. And that's why I hope I hugged my sister and brother-in-law a week ago for the first time in over a year, and it absolutely blew my mind. I'm not so sure, you asked me to participate in this podcast. I think I may have mentioned to you, Bruce, I'm not so sure I'm ready for a conversation with others because it's been a pretty solitary process for the last year. So I don't know how my driving is at this point. But I'm just hopeful that when we can connect, and not just in the superficial sense of, taking off our masks and running naked through the hills of Woodstock, but in the sense that we can connect heart to heart, that it may be more meaningful, if only for a moment, so that we don't forget where we've come from and where we may still be going, and know how precious it is to connect heart to heart, especially through music, which needs no translation. I'm hopeful. I have to be, because otherwise we could all shut it down now.
Right. I agree so much. And the fact that we are cherishing our connections more, even virtually, to be able to speak to each other. I mean, to me, this is like the biggest get together for me in a couple of weeks. So, and it's a treat to interact. I guess I think maybe one reason we're a little bit more okay with the isolation could be that we're kind of more accustomed to living inside our heads anyway as creatives. And so we're just like, yeah, well, okay. Half the time when I'm at an event that's full of people, I'm inside my own head and hiding in the corner anyway. So, and actually a live performance, even though you're interacting and communicating with large numbers of people, you still have that safety barrier of being on a stage, and you're on stage and they're elsewhere, and there's a separation and isolation. I think I think we kind of just are used to it and like it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. If I didn't have a microphone stand, it'd be tough.
It's kind of like a bartender that has the bar between them and the people that are ordering drinks. There's just some kind of like porch between you and that does kind of feel like it protects you a little bit.
I thoroughly enjoyed having some downtime. I mean, it was phenomenal to spend some time alone, which was very rare for me. I mean, as writers, we typically write alone. Like you said, even if you're co-writing, the process of really penning a song is one that you do alone. But outside of that, for me, I've got kids, I've got a fiance, I've got my family, and then I've got the recording, the studio, the live gigs, all this stuff. And so, and all these properties that I'm trying to manage. And so to stop was wonderful. Unfortunately, I had to keep going because I had all this other stuff spinning that was just going to fall apart if I didn't keep going. But when we first stopped, I loved having that pause and being part of that and being quiet. I mean, it was just so wonderful. And so it has helped me, I think, even now when things are getting busier again, to kind of slow down and just take my time with things, whether it be a relationship or a project or painting a wall. I think for me personally, slowing down has been a wonderful thing. So, I mean, that has been one advantage during all of this.
Well, it's a question of balance, isn't it always? How do you maintain that the internal with the external and keep those things balanced so we don't get too much in our head or too far externalized, as they say, how to stay cool in an uncool world.
Yeah, good point.
Greatly is, and I look forward to more North Carolina stuff this summer because I'm going to be recording with my friend John Fiffner, who produced my last album, and we're committed to making an album this summer. Is recording music in a band format. Oh my God. I've been doing tons of recording and writing here. And fortunately, my drummer is my husband, so I can at least get a keyboard and a drum track that's live. But what I miss is having 4 or 5 people sit in a room, play music together and recording that. That's the biggest thing that I miss. And I very much look forward to returning to that technique. This overdub mayhem is wearing me out.
Yeah, that kind of describes my life in the 80s.
Files.
I'm sure there's so few other words that might describe it, Bruce.
Mr. Butler.
Oh, okay. Try that. I keep fighting to comment. It would help if I unmuted my mic, because what is contradicting myself, and I agree with everything you're saying, is my inner stage hog is absolutely chafing at the bit. I have got to go sit in and play maracas with the Numbers Band. I have to do something real soon, or I'm going to go. That kind of contradicts everything that I said and that I hear, but all of which I agree with. But I have to go make a fool of myself real soon, or I'm going to really need therapy.
Well, it sounds like you got your crushed velvet pants back from the dry cleaners, is what you're telling us.
Exactly, and they still fit.
I do miss that. And I think that, and this is sort of an inner revelation of mine, is that I rely on audience feedback to feel okay about myself. So if I don't get that, that was good, applause for a certain period of time, I've noticed it in my life previously that if I go certain lengths of time without playing a gig, I start feeling really down about myself. And, just one good gig with supportive audience would just totally turn my attitude around. So I know I totally identify with what you're saying, Chris, and I agree. I feel the same way. I do miss that.
All right. Well, anybody else got any more questions? This has really been fun to get together, that's for sure. All right. And any of you that have played bass with Led Zeppelin, please speak up now.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm taking questions. Wouldn't that be terrific to see?
Still looking for that photograph, Deborah. I'm still looking for that photograph.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, somebody's got it out there. I keep looking for you, I swear.
Deborah, I wanted to mention I watched recently the documentary "If You're Not Dead" play, and I came away with a real appreciation for Chai Pig and the Miami album.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I looked a bit like I just come out of rehab, but I think if you can get past that, thank you so much. Well, that was Bruce Hensal's doing, and I'm forever, ever grateful for the opportunity to be in his capable hands and ears.
My pleasure. Well, thank you for joining us on the Reel to Reel podcast from the Melrose Center. I'm your host, Bruce Hensal, joined by my co-host, Jim Myers, and we'd like to thank our guests, Deborah Cahan, Beth McKee, Chris Butler, and David Schweizer. And thanks to Carol Hensal for our theme music.